Thank you for listening to the Speaking Out on Sex Abuse podcast with hosts Clara and Jimmy Hinton. If you're new to the podcast, please subscribe and share so you never miss an episode. Android users can find us and subscribe on your Play Music app. Apple users can find us and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Stitcher. You can follow us on Spreaker. And you can find the podcast on jimmyhinton.org and findingahealingplace.com. Please rate our show, subscribe, and share so that we can spread the word. Let's get into the show. Welcome to this week's podcast with host Jimmy Hinton.
And Jimmy's mom, Clara.
Well, we still are in the middle of quarantines right now because of COVID-19. Otherwise known as the Nova coronavirus. So we wanted to spend this episode and talk about how we protect kids, because right now it's not just a felt thing. Abuse really is on the rise. And I'm going to pull up an article here. This is a Fox 6 Texas news source, and the title of this article, this was published 2 days ago. The title of the article says, Texas hospital sees spike in severe child abuse cases, possibly related to COVID-19 stress. And I'll read just the first couple paragraphs here. Officials with Cook Children's Medical Center in Fort Worth, Texas, reported 7 cases of severe child abuse between Tuesday, March 17, and Saturday, March 21. 2 of those children died from their injuries. Hospital officials noted they usually average 6 deaths a year from abuse. In the 7 recent cases, every child was under 4 years old. Hospital officials said the spike was likely due to stress from lack of work or money and feeling overcrowded in the home. So we'll stop there and just say, first of all, this is incredibly tragic. This is a reality. This is happening right now. I think it's not just the physical violence. I'm sure sexual violence is on the rise. We talked about that in our last episode, that there are people lined up and waiting who are seeing this as an opportunity to offer to babysit kids. It's not a good situation for children right now.
It's tragic for children, and children, as we know, younger children especially, have no recourse. They are at home.
Yeah.
They have no escape. They have no say in what happens to them right now. And I know it's bothering me a lot. It's on my mind constantly.
Yeah. Well, I've seen people put an article up about, kids who otherwise would get a break from home by going to school. They're now stuck at home. And their parents are off work when their parents would typically be out working and, going to their job. At least the kids would get a little bit of a break. They're now stuck at home.
Well, it's a vicious cycle, and we know what that leads to. There's anger, anxiety, depression, financial woes, health woes, misbehavior, and then the anger ramps up again, and add to that the sexual misbehaviors and abuse, and you have a really tragic scene for thousands of children right now.
Yeah, it is not a good situation. And, I think there's been so much focus on people not passing germs to the point where, you and I have talked about there's almost this rabid hatred. I don't really know of a non-offensive term to use for that, but it's this hatred towards people who are leaving their house and saying you have blood on your hands and you're responsible for infecting other people. And
I think that kind of anger, hatred, whatever you want to call it, is all instigated. It begins through fear. And I think there's such a fear hysteria right now that people are lashing out at others and they're critical of everything that's done and said.
It's not really helpful.
Not at all.
For me, I think what's helpful is when people take a calm approach and realize the severity of this.
Right.
It's definitely nothing to balk at. It's pretty serious. And I think we do need to take it seriously. We need to take the quarantine seriously. But, this idea that if you go to the grocery store, you're responsible for infecting other people. Like, people are taking it to that extreme.
It's funny. I just got a call this morning from someone that I know who said, my children are supposed to go for the weekend with their mother. It's a father and mother, and they have shared custody of their children. Is it safe? They're calling me to say, is it safe? Should I let my children go with their mother? And my answer was yes. I think you should let your children go with their mother. She lives a couple miles away. But there is such a fear, and it's implanted in the children. They hear it, and everything escalates within the home.
Yeah.
And so you add to that the financial woes that, where's our next meal going to come from? And that's very literal for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
As we know, many of our children get 2 meals only a day, and those 2 meals came from school.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of communities, ours included, meals are being given, prepared for children, but they still have to be able to have transportation.
Right.
The parents are supposed to go pick up these meals that are in paper bags and bring them back.
Yeah, we're actually doing that. Our kids are getting the meals from the school. And,
which is awesome.
Yep, it's incredible.
But not every parent is like you are. And then there's that little glitch of the parents that are just, they're angered, they're frustrated, and I'm not criticizing, but they need their alcohol. We know what alcohol withdrawal does, drug withdrawal, tobacco withdrawal. So you have parents dealing with those issues too, which then lead to psychological issues. So we have a whole series of things happening with children taking the brunt of this.
Yeah, and I think adding to that noise and confusion and all this shouting on social media is certainly not helpful for parents who are already stressed out, legitimately stressed out.
Exactly.
And so, and at the same time, I don't want this just to be about the spread of a virus. I think we need to look at a bigger picture and realize, there are really broken homes with really violent parents to begin with. There's sexual abuse, there's physical abuse, there's verbal abuse, there's neglect, there's the drug and alcohol addictions. I mean, on and on and on and on. And I think while we're focusing on the virus, as we should, if that's all that we're focusing on, we're really neglecting
we're missing really the whole picture.
Yeah,
sure
a really important part of the picture, and that is there are children who are dying. I mean, we just read an article where 2 kids, all of these kids are under the age of 4. 2 of those 7 kids are dead. That's absolutely horrific. That's
I literally
tragic.
Lost sleep last night after reading that article because I know that within our community, I know we have poverty. I know we have every one of those issues that we talked about while parents are worried about this virus. They genuinely are worried, but then everything else is all ramped up. So it makes for a very volatile place for children to be right now.
So what do we do? As those of us who are maybe more on the consistent end. I don't want the word stable to be offensive. That's not what I don't mean stable as in mentally stable. I mean financially stable.
Right.
Like right now, I mean, I'm very blessed. We're in a really good position. Financially, we're going to make it. We're going to be okay. We are preparers. That's just the way that we budget our money.
Right.
My wife is out of work as of the beginning of next week. This week, her hours got cut way back, and we depend on that income. But I mean, we're going to be okay.
Right.
I'm not worried about that whatsoever. And I think there are plenty of families out there who are in the position that we are, where that's not a stress. So it's up to us, I feel, to really have a heightened awareness for people who really are struggling around us.
Thank you, Jimmy, for saying that so compassionately and for wording it right. It's hard to put into words what you and I are feeling right now.
Yeah.
Because we know the situation of so many young children that need help right now.
So for those of us who are able, we're in a position right now where we can be a voice of calm, and we have a heightened awareness. How do we help? How do we check up on kids who may be in danger? Some who probably are in danger. What do we do? We wrote down a couple points here. So, we're just going to kind of systematically work through these. There are 4 points. So I'm sure there's plenty more that we can be doing, but, we wanted to stick with what we felt were the 4 most important. Number 1, just be aware. Know that this is going on. I knew it in my heart that this would be a problem, but I didn't have any articles or statistics that back that up. You sent me that article that I just read from.
Right.
You texted that to me last night. And this is real. This is not imagined. It's happening right now. I think of New York City and some of your major cities where they're in crisis mode right now. There
on
are
so
a lot
many
of people,
different levels.
Yeah.
Think about it, on so many different levels.
Yeah.
This has affected every part of our lives, every single part of our lives. For those who prepare, like you said, it's not so bad. We basically have to stay at home. We have comfortable homes. We have been blessed with that. We have been blessed with food in our homes. We have been blessed with peace of mind. Not everyone has that. And that's what we need to be aware of, number 1.
So, I think in some of your major cities, you're going to have a really big spike in abuse. So being aware that this is going on, that this is the reality that many families face right now. Many children are in very dangerous positions right now. There are deaths that are happening right now. There's an increase in that. We know, at least in Fort Worth, Texas, we know that there's been a radical spike in abuse cases that they're seeing at a children's hospital.
Well, actually, if when we look at that report, the normal, which is very sad, the normal statistic of deaths per year due to this type of young abuse
7.
was, and they've already had 2 in 1 month.
Yeah.
Just since this virus broke out this month. Yep. So that kind of puts things in perspective.
It really does. So, definitely have an awareness. Number 2, check in on families. Make it a point to pick up the phone, call people. If you don't know the families personally, and you just have a family in mind that you're really
concerned about,
for,
if we're just
that you're concerned for the kids, find somebody. They talk about 6 degrees of separation. I think it's more like 1 degree of separation. You'll know somebody who knows that family. Find somebody who knows that family and have them call and check up on the family. Do check-ins. Do daily check-ins on the phone. Just check in on these kids and drive by, see if there are any signs of things that seem off. Do you see broken windows? Do you see evidence of physical struggles in the house? Check up on them.
This is so critical. It really is. When we become so concerned within, we often lose eyesight beyond our own front door. And this isn't the time to do that. Mm-hmm. We all know of certain families who struggle under normal circumstances. These are not normal circumstances. A phone call is easy. We don't have to leave our phone, but there's something about accountability that helps adults to kind of like shake whatever it is that they're dealing with, or to share, either or. And if there's something we can drop on their porch, if they're in need of food, if they're in need of $10, we can do that. There are those of us who can help that way. And believe me, that can make the difference between the life of a child or the death of a child.
Yeah. I think even a surprise visit, a physical in-person visit where you just drop off food or something, where you have to get some kind of a response back, some kind of an acknowledgement.
Now, don't panic. We don't mean go in the house and all of that. We have people within our community just doing drop-offs on porches.
They just knock on the door and holler in and say, hey, I dropped some food off.
Through the windows, whatever.
It's just some kind of an acknowledgement that somebody's home, that you see signs of life, and that it makes those people aware that you're checking in on them.
Very important.
I would say do that unannounced. Typically, I don't recommend that because I'm just a private person and I don't like people showing up at my house unannounced. But that's just a little quirky thing
I shared with Jimmy yesterday. I was sitting at my job. I've been laid off, except I'm a manager where I work, and I am supposed to go in daily to check the mail, to take care of any bills that come up, just light duties like that. And I was just ready to leave, actually to come to Jimmy's home, and there's a knock on the office door. And I hesitated. I thought, I have signs posted all over that were closed. I don't know what's going on. Here it was a state policeman in full uniform, standing nice and tall. And I said, may I help you? And he said, you can. He said, I'd like to step in your office. I said, okay.
I actually called him. I was like, this lady, she's no good.
Yeah. And he said, I am just doing random checks. I am making sure that you're doing what your signs say you're supposed to be doing. I'm making sure your business is closed down. And it's amazing how that accountability made me feel, knowing that there was a drop-in visit by, someone checking on me. And I liked it, actually. I liked that. And I think everybody needs that, some form of accountability.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing.
It's a very good thing.
And when you told me about that, you said he was really respectful. He was really kind.
Yes.
It wasn't like all cocky and rude.
No, he was very respectful. He
was doing his job.
He was.
And it was a good experience.
And I think if we do these check-ins on families that we know are in that really critical state, and we do it in a right manner, we will also receive a good response. And in the meantime, we have those children and parents knowing that there's some accountability there.
Yeah. Number 3, if you suspect anything that is reportable, report it. Don't be afraid to report.
Absolutely.
Even if they know that you're the one who stopped at their house and, they put 2 and 2 together, that doesn't matter. If you really suspect and you really think that abuse is going on in that home, you really, really need to report that. When you read these articles about the increase in abuse, and that article that I read from is not the only one. Just do a quick search on it, and you'll find several articles that talk about the increase in abuse over the last month or two. This is a real thing. This is really happening.
And in this segment, we're not just focusing on sexual abuse only, because I think
it's all forms of abuse.
That's a huge part of it. That's going to be going on big time right now, because everybody's together. Everybody is home together going kind of bonkos.
Yeah.
But it's the physical, it's the, no food, the beatings that children have that go through, the, emotional pain that they will feel because of parents withdrawing from drugs or going through alcohol withdrawal. And those are very real things. We can pretend they're not, but they are very real and affect thousands upon thousands of families.
I would add, too, that it's not just children who we're checking up on.
No.
There's certainly spousal abuse.
Yes.
Domestic violence is a really big issue.
Yes.
And we need to just do checkups and make sure that everybody's okay in the home, and that, if there are signs of distress, that we're aware of that, and that if there's reason to suspect that there's abuse going on, that we report that. Again, that threshold for reporting is reasonable suspicion, that you have a reason to believe that abuse could be happening in the house. Not that it is happening, but that it could be happening.
Right.
But you have to have reasonable suspicion to make a report. Number 4, our final one, is to talk to the kids in the home. By talk to kids, we would recommend that the best method for doing that is via video, where you can actually see the kids' faces. And I'm not talking, get into creeper adult mode and, hey, I want to talk to your kids. If you have kids or grandkids of your own who are already friends with them, we've been encouraging our kids, just for their own mental health and staying connected to their friends, to video chat with them.
I think that is one of the best ways. Jimmy and I were talking about that before recording this podcast. What better way to teach our children, too, to care about others.
And just to have an awareness.
Yes, have an awareness. Check up.
Teach our kids that if they see signs of distress in their friends, to let us know.
And they know who doesn't have food at home. They know what children, go through bad times at home. Children share most often. They will share at least a little bit of that to where our kids know. So a video chat is an awesome way.
Yeah, and if that's not a possibility, then I would suggest calling just to check up on families. Again, best case is to check up on families Obviously, you don't want to cold call every house on your block,
making random phone calls,
because that that's not smart, and it doesn't work.
No,
but people who who you have some sort of personal connection with. And the other thing too is, even if you don't suspect that abuse is going on, this isn't just checking on people who you think might be abused. This is just a good practice to do, to check up on neighbors anyway.
Is down home caring. It really is. Just caring about each other.
Yeah. We should be checking, making sure that they don't have anything, any medical problems that need addressed. Make sure if you have neighbors who are without transportation, and they have to go to a doctor if they're ill, offer to be that person, or pay for a taxi or something. Just check on your neighbors. But definitely don't just talk to the adults. If possible, and when possible, put the kids on the phone, get the kids on the phone, or best yet, get them in front of a camera, to talk to your kids or your grandkids. Get the kids to see each other's faces and make sure that there are no visible signs of distress or abuse, physical marks where they've been abused, black and blue marks, blood. Make sure that they're okay. And I think, again, that signals to the families, one, that you care.
Right.
And 2, that
somebody's checking. Yeah. That accountability again. Yeah. Somebody's checking up on things, and help diffuse, if you talk to parents, help diffuse fears and anger, and just by your calmness. Mm-hmm. I know Jimmy remains calm, and he also has that little kink of sense of humor, and that connects him with
like calling the cops on my mom.
Thanks, Jimmy, for sending that trooper up yesterday.
You bet. We're just checking up on you.
The accountability, yes.
Making sure you don't have sticky fingers that are making money disappear from the register.
That's what I mean. He can do his work while having a sense of humor, and often we can diffuse anger within a home by doing that, and simply by letting others know somebody cares. Somebody called, somebody cares.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll leave you with this truth bomb. Just be aware that incidents of abuse are up right now. And check on your neighbors. Have an awareness, check on your neighbors, report when you need to report, and just do the right thing. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll catch you next episode.
Thanks again for listening to today's episode of the Speaking Out on Sex Abuse podcast. Thank you to our patrons who make this podcast possible. If you found it helpful, please follow on Spreaker, subscribe on Google Play Music, Apple Podcast, or Stitcher. If you believe in what we do, consider supporting the podcast by becoming a patron, and check out the cool rewards our patrons receive. Share with your friends and tell the world. Join us in speaking out on sex abuse so we can change the tides and prevent abuse.